Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to Radio Row here at the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine. It's a special episode of KCS and Update. BJ Kissel hanging out with ESPN's Field Yates. And
my old friend.
Yes, if anyone who's followed this knows that for, I want to say the last 3 years.
At least.
Yeah. I think this is my 10th overall combine. I think it's the last 3 years you and I have sat here and talked about how Mike Borgonzi deserves a GM job. Now, I don't know what we're going to talk about, but we can talk about the fact that we're happy that he got a GM job.
What'd you have for dinner last night? Like, what are our new topics?
Yeah.
No, more seriously. Very happy for
Popeyes.
Mike.
Popeyes.
Popeyes. So it was a winner.
Uber Eats it. Yeah.
Mike's, I said this and for multiple years now, right? Like, I just don't know how you could be more qualified for a GM job for somebody who hadn't had it than Mike was. You know, this is an integral part of a team that built the best roster in the NFL and, you know, an unprecedented run of success. I mean, 5 Super Bowls in 6 seasons had literally never been done before. And so when you're involved in every facet of the operation, I think if I were a team looking for a GM, I'd be pretty motivated to find somebody that had, you know, a piece of the puzzle there in Kansas City. So I'm pumped for him. It's great news for the Titans. You know, the Chiefs are going to find some ways to plug some gaps there in the front office. They have a lot of smart people there still, and obviously it's going to be a very successful team going forward. But I am stoked for Mike and his family to get a really well-deserved opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's one of those like rising tides. You know, you're part of something that's very successful, and it's interesting with the scouting side of things because it's whenever a player's drafted, it's our guy. It's not your guy, your guy. The area scouts always get mad because they draft a guy from your area. It's obviously your guy.
Sure,
that's not the way it works. So you have, and for anyone who's listening, you have a longer history with Mike with your time with the Chiefs. And I didn't have the dynamic of knowing how his voice fit in with Brett and all of that. You just know that in the totality of what they're doing, obviously brought in a lot of good guys and they're successful. For me, wanting Mike to get a job was obviously connecting the dots of he's important position at a team that's finding a lot of success. Yeah. For me, it was all personal.
Right.
He's such a nice, good dude. Jill, like the whole family. Yeah. It's just, you want success for them. You know that the team is finding success. And that's where I was coming from these conversations. But as somebody who's worked with him, what stood out to you back then about just the way that he worked, the way that he got after it, the way that he ran 15 miles on the treadmill, just getting that dude was an animal.
Yeah, he definitely works his butt off. That much is for sure. He keeps himself in much better shape than I do. And the guy's
just always drenched in sweat, like 12 miles into it. It's like, oh my God.
Talk about like reshaping your body. He was a fullback, you know, he was a fullback at Brown and then had a cup of coffee in the Arena League, or at least a tryout with the Arena League. So he totally shaped the body up. But I will say this is I wish I could sit here and tell you that back in 2009 when I got hired, and it was at least right away, the first wave included myself, Mike Borgonzi, Ryan Poles, and Nick Sirianni, that I would know that all those guys would go on to be highly successful individuals. And by the way, a couple months after that, Brant Tillis, who's now the EVP over at the Carolina Panthers, is going to do a great job, or has already done a great job. Will do a great job for them going forward.
Moneyball.
He
called him Moneyball.
Yeah, he is. He is. Brant is way smarter than I am. That much is for sure. And probably most people too, for that matter. Yeah. Great guy, and so happy for him and his family as well. What I think the part that's, you know, and from a personal perspective, that's rewarding is just to see people that, you know, have dedicated their entire lives. The reality of working in a front office of the NFL and a coach of the NFL as well is that it requires significant sacrifice. And I don't think that people are, you know, they're not sad that these guys get to scout football players and watch them, but you know, it's a significant amount of time away from your family. And, you know, road scouts are traveling a region for hundreds of days of the year to be away from their family, but to find great football players. And while Mike's path with the Chiefs was not as a road scout, spent a ton of time on the road, kind of touched every portion of the roster construction process with Kansas City. And he's been doing this for a long time. In 2009, that's 15 plus years with the Chiefs, and he's earned it, you know, and he was there when, and I was there too, when things weren't so good, right? And the way that you go from good to great is not simply you draft Patrick Mahomes. He's the best player on the planet and, you know, going to go down the short list at least of the greatest players of all time. But if it was as simple as that, we wouldn't even bother doing the rest of the exercises. And the Chiefs they have had remarkable success in every facet of roster building. And Mike was prominently involved in helping Brett achieve that great success.
You mentioned Nick Sirianni and the spirit of going through the process. I'll ask you about the Super Bowl. I haven't talked a whole lot about it. But sometimes you just get your butt kicked. Sometimes stuff happens, but
there's no requirement to do so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just they came out. What overall thoughts on the Super Bowl? How surprised were you at how it played out?
Very surprised. I thought this would be a competitive game at the very least. It could be a wake-up call. The challenge for the Chiefs in being in this incredibly rare situation, and people don't think it's that rare because it just happened with the Patriots right before them.
Yeah.
But this is, to me, the two greatest runs of sustained success in the history of the NFL. And this may sound like hyperbole. We may never see it again.
Yeah.
We may never see teams in the salary cap era achieving what the Chiefs are achieving right now and what the Patriots did over the course of 2 decades. The hard part for the Chiefs is this. There is no such thing as a week off in the NFL for them. They can't just figure it out and win. I know that they have won a ton of close games. Part of the reason why they have had so many close games is that they get every team's A-plus effort every single week. But looking at it from your roster construction standpoint, what makes this complicated and difficult for them now is they have so many great players. You have so many great players who make a lot of money. You've got to find ways to replace players that you can't afford. And oftentimes, as you are throughout the course of the season trying to keep your team at the absolute apex of its potential, using resources like, trading some draft capital for a DeAndre Hopkins, right? Or doing things of that nature. It's a great but lonely place to be at the top. And staying at the top is a challenge. It's a great challenge to have, to be clear. But I was stunned. It could be a wake-up call for the Chiefs, though. It's deja vu all over again, right? They're going to approach this offseason, I believe, a lot like what happened when they lost to the Bucs in the Super Bowl, and pour every resource imaginable that they have into that offensive line.
Yeah, I think probably similar to most things that you can make a connection to. But I used to talk with Brett and then Dorsey before that. The better they are at their job, and it was always around training camp, the better they are at their jobs, the more difficult it becomes. And the signs, I remember talking with Brett about this, the signs that they were doing better at their jobs with the amount of teams that were calling about their guys they knew weren't going to make their 53 towards the end of camp. And it's all of a sudden we know that we've got a better team just because of the amount of phone calls coming in across the league looking for our guys.
100%.
So Chiefs offseason, obviously Trey Smith is the big one right now. People want to know how that's going to handle. See how that plays out. Trey Smith has a ton of leverage, and as somebody spent a little bit of time around Trey Smith, gone to O-line masterminds with him, just seen kind of his development since he's got into the league. I'm always in the camp. I want the guy to get paid. I hope it's in Kansas City, but on a personal level, I want to see these guys get paid. For you, looking at the Chiefs, and we saw the Travis Kelce news kind of come out the last couple of days. What's the most intriguing kind of storyline following the Chiefs that you're looking to see kind of how it plays out?
Definitely, and this is not to be boring, but it's definitely the top free agents and whether those guys stick around or not, right? You got to take care of the home front first, right? The best free agents, the best investments that you can make are always the guys you know the most about. Trey Smith, Nick Bolton, Justin Reed, amongst others, right? In the case of Trey and Nick, homegrown talents, right? The kind of guys that you dream about finding and then reinvesting in. But the reality is going to set in soon. Like Trey, I think, will end up being the highest paid guard in the NFL, whether that's from the Chiefs or somebody else, right? You mentioned the leverage. He's got real leverage. But I'm not ruling it out, of course, but it's going to require a significant financial commitment, and it might come at the cost of other players. But this is Brett Veach is going to have to spend the rest of his time as the GM of the Chiefs measuring 9 times and cutting once, because no decision's easy. Right? The easy ones, those don't happen anymore, right? It's easy to know that you want to reinvest in Patrick Mahomes, and he's worth every dollar, probably 3, 5, 10, 20 times it, right? But when you pay him, it impacts the rest of your roster construction. When you pay Travis Kelce or Creed Humphrey or whoever it is, right?
Chris Jones.
I
went through that with Chris.
Every dollar spent on somebody is $1 less available for somebody else.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it,
Tough. That's why he gets paid the big bucks. That's why he's good at what he does.
But
that's why it's so impressive.
Leaders and GMs are not paid to make the easy decisions, right? They're paid to make the difficult decisions. So this offseason, and I don't know, we're a couple weeks away. It could happen at any moment. But if we find out that Trey Smith is weighing an offer for $21 million a season from somebody else, and the Chiefs can make that offer. But if they do make that offer and accept it, it might mean that they can't keep Nick Bolton.
Yeah.
Right? That's you're going to have to decide what's more valuable to us. Is it a guy who is arguably the best free agent guard that we have seen since Joe Tooney?
No.
One of the best guards in football? Or is it one of the best, not just defensive players on our team, but leaders in the league? So those are the kind of difficult decisions you have to make. It's not, I'm not saying that it's either or in Nick or Trey. I'm just using that as an example of how you have to sort of visualize the decisions that are on the desk of Brett Veach right now.
Yeah. All right. Last question I've got for you.
Okay.
And you mentioned this earlier that we might not never see a team have this level of sustained success. And it's interesting. You've got connections to both of the last two teams and organizations to do it.
Secret.
And we saw it with New England where everyone that was not a New England fan turned on the Patriots. And it kind of happened. They get tired of teams' success.
That's all it is.
I've had this conversation. We talked about this in New Orleans. Do you believe in today's kind of media environment and for what it is, not different conversation? Do you think there could ever be a team that could win 3 in a row that wouldn't be universally hated by the time they got there? Yeah.
This is success breeds contempt. It has nothing to do with it. Like, Patrick's a super likable dude, man. Yeah. I love that guy. Travis Kelce, I love that guy. Andy Reid, I love that guy. Like those, the 3, I would say, most recognizable faces in this run to the average football fan are all, to me, effortlessly likable.
Yeah. So is Chris.
Doesn't matter.
He's a giant kid.
Chris Jones.
Chris Jones, awesome.
Yeah. I'm just, the point is that, like, it has nothing to do with them. It's all about people. People want change. That's how it goes. Yeah. Because fans want hope. They want to say, like, yeah, it's great that I have cap space. I'm going to spend it to not win the Super Bowl, right? Yeah. So, it's, you are totally comfortable with the trade of winning a lot to be hated. Yeah. But it's still an unfortunate part of the trade.
Yeah. Everybody, that is Field Yates. Field, where can they find all of your stuff?
First Draft, which is the show we do now. It's over on NFL and ESPN YouTube page, wherever you get your podcasts. So hopefully churning out a bunch of content between now and the draft itself. And
I can say this now that I've done this a little while. Couldn't say this 5-6 years ago. I've done this long enough now. There's probably not a nicer person in NFL media than the man sitting right next to me. So always appreciate talking with you, man. Always appreciate these events where we get a chance to see each other. But again, make sure to check out Field stuff. He knows his stuff, and he's one of the good ones. We'll be right back after this break as Tucker Franklin's going to sit with Pro Football Focus's Trevor Sikkema. Another good dude.
Great dude.
Great dude.
Better than me, that's for sure.
He is on a trajectory similar to that guy.
Ooh. I agree.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
Welcome back into KCSN Update. Tucker Franklin hanging out here with Trevor Sikkema at the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine. Trevor, great to catch up with you again after catching up at the Super Bowl. We're making this a couple of like a bi-weekly tradition, I guess.
I know.
At this point.
Oh, I'm just making the rounds here. But dude, it's always good to join you. Talk a little football. I mean, even before we hit record, I feel like we were just rattling all sorts of stuff off. So can't do the pod before the pod though. So now we got to do it.
That's true. Now we have to do it for real. I do appreciate you hopping on. And look, it seems like every time we get together, I think at the Super Bowl we sat down and we talked about the offensive kind of preview for the Chiefs offense. Mm-hmm. Got out of hand quickly there.
It was the Anchorman scene where he was just like, boy, that got out of hand quickly. Yeah.
I don't know if anyone saw that coming. Talked to a lot of people around here. Everyone was like, Philly, we thought Philly could beat them.
Their roster was good, right? You know, that was I didn't think it. I thought that Philly could have looked that good. I didn't think the Chiefs were going to look as flat as they did, and it's a bummer. It's like Travis Kelce said after the game. It's like it's a bummer because we didn't play that bad all year, and it's like, okay, well, the game that you would want to do that the least, it happens.
So I had a podcast with you and Nate Tice on it, where you were talking about the offense and the defense. But I want to talk about the offense again with you because I do think that there's a lot of question marks on the offensive side of the ball here. There's a really good running back class. There's a pretty decent running back free agent class. I think there's some guys out there that could be signed.
Got some names.
The Chiefs at the running back position last year, I want to talk about it, had an interesting approach to say the least of how they address things. They added Kareem Hunt mid-season because they did have an injury to Isaiah Pacheco, and there's been a resurgence in running backs. What did you think about the Chiefs' room as a whole last year, and just kind of how they were able to really, because it was patchwork. It was a patchwork running back room and how they were able to get through it.
Yeah, I think that it's exactly what you said there. They were doing what they had to do last year. They had Pacheco. They felt like they could just give him the full load of what they wanted from the running back position, knowing that it was a supplement to what they wanted their passing game to be. And honestly, when Pacheco has been healthy, in the previous years leading up to it, and obviously in their Super Bowl years that they had the previous couple of seasons, like Pacheco was good, right? I mean, like he was the guy that they could lean on to give them those tough carries. And it just felt like there was a lack of juice in their running back room, right? I can understand why you would go after a guy like Carson Steele because he plays a very similar brand of football to the way that Isaiah Pacheco did. So you have this, sort of theme in your running back room of, we're going to run straight through your face. And that's the type of running backs that we want. But, Keontae Ingram gives them a little bit of speed, but clearly they needed somebody who is of starting or rotational caliber who gave you more juice out of the backfield. And that to me is what was missing most from that team. And even with the Pacheco injury, like they just weren't going to have that the way that the running back room was kind of constructed. So I think that's going to be a point of emphasis for them, whether it's in the running back free agency class or probably more likely what we see from the draft from them.
It's a very deep running back draft. You and I have kind of talked about it off air, on air, I feel like all the time. And as you're making your rounds here, I'm sure you're talking about running backs everywhere because there's just so many different running backs. Looking at the room they had last year, obviously Isaiah Pacheco wasn't the guy that he was before he broke his ankle, right? I think that it was pretty evident there. They had Kareem Hunt, who was off of a couch, which pretty impressive job for Kareem Hunt to come off a couch and look as decent as he did. But you could tell by the Super Bowl, man, he was just out of gas.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna knock him for that. But as you mentioned, they got 3 guys under contract right now. You're looking out here. Let's start with the free agents, I guess. Is there anyone out there that you think maybe the Chiefs could go after in the free agent market? Because look, they do got a lot of free agent choices on their own team they have to make.
Yeah.
Do you think running back's one of those choices that they go out and try to fill?
Yeah, I mean, like Aaron Jones, a free agent. So, if you're a team that, the Chiefs obviously think that, hey, the Super Bowl window is still open for them. I guess that's the back that you would go after just because of his experience. I mean, he was great for Minnesota this past year on a 1-year deal. He's somebody who can give you a plus in the receiving game as well. He gives you a little bit of juice, but he's getting older himself. And so it's not kind of like what he was in his early days when he was with the Packers. So that's the one that I think, if you're prioritizing the position, that's who you go after. But then the other guys in the class, it's J.K. Dobbins, it's Najee Harris, it's Nick Chubb. None of those guys really do it for me as additions for the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe Javonte Williams, but Williams is a guy who I liked a lot coming out of UNC, who, let's face it, he had, every chance to become that guy in Denver, and he didn't. So maybe you just think change of scenery is the thing that matters most for him, but it's hard to, even if they signed him, think, oh yeah, we got Javonte, we're good to go now. So I think he's the one who intrigues me the most just because he's still young. He still has that athleticism to him, even coming off of the knee injury that he had a couple of years ago. So to me, when I look at the free agency class, if you're going all in on the position, probably an Aaron Jones. If you're kind of taking a flyer on a guy, it feels like a Javonte Williams for them.
I do like the Javonte Williams thing just because of this age factor. If you go to the free agents and you sort by age, he's going to be the youngest by far. Look at all those guys. And I think that is very enticing. It's going to be interesting to see where his price comes up there. Using with the injury and everything like that.
Right.
But this draft class, insane running back draft class. We've been talking to guys all over the place. We're talking about maybe 30 draftable grades on running backs.
Yeah.
Some people are saying, like, how have you kind of overall encapsulated this running back draft class? And I know it's a very broad, overarching question.
Sure, yeah.
What do you think about this draft?
No, it's another year where whatever flavor of running back you want, you're going to be able to find it. You got guys get a little bit taller. You got guys who are pass protectors. You got guys who are pass catching specialists. You guys who are a little bit more speed demons out of the backfield. These guys who can lower the shoulder and really run behind their pads. I mean, it sounds like I'm kind of listing off these cliches, but really that's what goes into a deep running back class, is being able to pick these guys really at any point. And it's got the star power too at the very top, obviously Ashton Genty, but even right behind him, I think guys like Omarion Hampton, Cam Scattaboo, I mean, like, these guys are going to be fantastic pros in my opinion. I think when you get to who in this running back class could make sense for the Kansas City Chiefs, we go back to sort of how we set this up. I think they're lacking a little bit of juice right now. Yeah, Isaiah Pacheco, obviously, like you said, didn't look the same after that ankle injury, but I think he was trying to come back as quickly as possible, right? To contribute the Super Bowl. And so I think that he will look a little bit better going into next season. He'll still be that power back that they like coming out of the backfield. But I think of a guy like Dylan Sampson from Tennessee, somebody who I feel like is getting really slept on despite having a really productive year this past year. He was hurt in the Ohio State game, so he didn't really get to showcase his skills in that college football playoff, but he's somebody who's got an extensive track background, sprinter when he was in high school. He's somebody who I think could be a great addition, who I feel like he's kind of a top 50 type of a talent or a top 60 type of a talent, but maybe you could get him somewhere even a little bit later on day 3. I think of Travion Henderson from Ohio State as well. He showed off his speed over the college football playoff journey. Guy like Caleb Johnson from Iowa, he's certainly in that mix as well. If you want to go a little bit deeper, a little bit further back, you get guys got like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt from Arizona, who I think is getting slept on a little bit in this class. But there's good athletes to be had here that you can pick in round 2, round 3, round 4 as a couple of those names that I just threw out there.
And you mentioned just kind of overall in the draft, when you look at the Chiefs kind of draft strategy that they have going on here, they've got that extra 3rd round pick,
which is nice.
It's been very nice from the Tennessee Titans, which is also very nice. It happens to be from the Titans.
Right.
Where do you kind of see them approaching running back in the draft, if they do approach running back, right? Because they do got some other issues that, depending on how free agency shakes out with Trey Smith or maybe Nick Bolton or even Justin Reed. Justin Reed goes, you might need to look at a safety again in round 2 if the right guy's there. How do you think that they kind of approach running back at this point heading into the draft?
I don't think they will draft a running back before the 3rd round. Like first, 2nd round. Like I don't think they're going to do it. They're going to have to probably take a chance on another offensive lineman, whether it's a guy who they think is going to start a tackle or somebody to maybe replace Trey Smith on the inside. So to me, one of those first 2 picks that they have is going to be an offensive lineman. And then it kind of depends on who ends up leaving in free agency. Are you supplementing a safety spot, a linebacker spot, along the interior defensive line? They've got some guys who are free agents as well. So to me, it's going to be probably 2 trench picks. That's the way that I feel like Veach is gonna go with those first 2 picks. But then, 3rd round and beyond, I think that's where you really start to talk about these backs. And there's a lot of good ones in this class. And that's why I say you can still get one of these guys that I think there's going to be a lot of fun ones here at the Combine that are going to be able to run really well and have very impressive athletic scores. And so, that's the way that I think that they're going to go about it. Probably wait until late day 2 at the earliest. But it may even just be something where it's like, hey, we know we got Isaiah coming back. We're hoping that Carson Steele can be even more for us this upcoming season. They might just say, we're waiting until day 3. If there's a guy early part of day 3 we like, we'll take him. But the rest of those picks, rounds 1, 2, and 3, we got to occupy elsewhere.
Well, we're here at the Combine. How do you think some of these guys are going to test? Who are some of the guys that you think that can really help themselves here or really are going to surprise some people here?
Yeah, one of the guys that I mentioned before, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt from Arizona, he is somebody who I think is really going to stand out in a big way. He was somebody who was showing out when he was at the Shrine Bowl, and I love to see him when he was there. I am very curious there's 2 receiving backs in this class who I'm very intrigued with. LaQuint Allen from Syracuse and Brashard Smith from SMU. These guys have really good receiving abilities, wide receiver backgrounds to them, but now they are playing the running back position. And so can these guys showcase some plus athleticism there? Because if you're an NFL team and you go, okay, really good 3rd down ability, they've got if they have a great short shuttle, a great 3-cone, that'll just be more emphasis to the fact that they could run some good routes out of the backfield. They could be a mismatch in that regard. So those are a handful of players that I think could surprise names. But then we got guys at the top. I mean, if Caleb Johnson from Iowa works out, I think he could be just a weight-adjusted freak. I really do. I think that this dude could have a fantastic 40-yard dash. I think the jumps could be insane from him. Dylan Sampson, who I already mentioned from Tennessee, he's got that sprinter track background. I wonder if he is just going to get close to that 4.3 mark, that 4.3 flat mark, which if you could do that, you're flying. And so the NFL is going to take notice. So maybe he won't be a steal in the draft at that point. I'm very curious to also see where Travion Henderson goes, because it felt like Henderson was a little bit underwhelming throughout his Ohio State career as a whole. Right. But that first year that he started as like a redshirt freshman, and then the college football playoff that he had. So the beginning and the end were great, were fantastic. In between, he was kind of dealing through injury a little bit. And even when he was out there, he wasn't as impressive. I feel like the opinions are kind of split. Which part of his career do you believe the most? Right. And if he has a really good combine and tests really well athletically, I think he could be one of the top 5 backs taken.
Well, we'll see how it goes. Trevor, appreciate you joining me here at the 2025 Combine. That's going to do it for this edition. We will catch you guys later. Make sure to stay locked in here to KC Sports Network. Like and subscribe. Do all that good stuff as well. So we will talk to you soon.